Chapter 14, The Medium. A true medium. Klein repeated this description to himself, staying silent as he followed Dunn Smith out of the carriage. Welch's house in Tingen was a detached building with a garden. The road outside its metal gates was wide enough for 4 carriages. Street lamps, different from those Klein knew from his past life, lined the road every 50 meters. These were gas lamps, about the height of an adult man for easy lighting, with black metal frames forming checkered patterns around the glass, casting a warm, paper lantern-like light that mixed with the cool darkness. Walking on the sunset-lit path, Klein and Dunn Smith entered Welch's rented house through the slightly open metal gate. A cemented road led straight to a 2-story bungalow, wide enough for 2 carriages. To the left was a garden, and to the right, a lawn. The pleasant smell of flowers mixed with the fresh scent of grass, creating a happy and relaxed atmosphere. As soon as he stepped in, Klein shivered and looked around nervously. He felt like eyes were watching him from the garden, the lawn, the roof, behind a swing, and in every dark corner. Even though he saw no one, he felt like he was on a crowded street, a strange and unsettling feeling that made him tense and sent a chill down his spine. Something's wrong. Klein couldn't help but exclaim to Dunn. Dunn's expression didn't change as he walked beside him and calmly replied, just ignore them. Trusting the Nighthawk, Klein tried to ignore the creepy feeling of being watched by unseen eyes as they walked to the bungalow's main entrance. If this goes on any longer, I will go crazy. As Dunn reached to knock, Klein quickly turned around, seeing only flowers swaying in the wind. Come in, gentlemen, a seemingly ghostly voice said from inside the house. Dunn turned the doorknob, opened the door, and asked a woman on the sofa, Daly, any results? The living room chandelier was off. 2 leather couches faced each other across a marble coffee table. On the table was a lit candle with a strange cobalt blue flame, casting an eerie light over the living room, dining room, and kitchen. On the sofa sat a lady in a hooded black robe with blue eyeshadow and blush, wearing a silver bracelet with a white crystal pendant. At first glance, Klein thought she looked exactly like a stereotypical medium. Daly, the beautiful medium, glanced at Klein with her sparkling emerald eyes, then looked at Dunn Smith. She said that the original spirits, including Welch's and Naya's, had all disappeared, and the remaining spirits knew nothing. Spirits. Spirit medium. Were all those invisible things spying on me spirits? There were so many of them. Klein took off his hat, held it to his chest, and bowed slightly, saying, Good evening, madam. Dunn Smith sighed, saying, That's tricky. He then introduced Klein to Daly and asked her to see if she could get any information from him. The medium, Daly, immediately looked at Klein, pointed to a single armchair, and asked him to sit down. Thank you, Klein nodded, walked over, and sat down, his heart racing. Whether I survive, whether I get through this successfully or have my secrets exposed will all depend on whatever happens next. He felt helpless because he had nothing to rely on but his own strange circumstances. This feeling really sucks. Klein thought bitterly. Next, Dunn sat on the sofa opposite Klein. Daly took out 2 small glass bottles from a pouch at her waist. Her emerald eyes smiled at Klein as she explained she needed his help but couldn't treat him harshly since he wasn't an enemy. She said that might make him uncomfortable or cause pain, even long-term effects. Instead, she would use fragrances to make him feel relaxed and comfortable, allowing him to open up bit by bit and truly feel those emotions. That sounded wrong. Klein was shocked. Dunn, sitting across from him, laughed and said not to be weirded out. He explained that they were different from the Church of the Lord of Storms and that their ladies could tease men. He added that Klein should understand since his mother was a devout believer of the goddess, and he and his brother used to go to Sunday school. I understand. It's just that I never thought that she would be such a. Klein gestured, unable to find the right words, almost saying, veteran driver. Dunn smiled slightly and reassured him that Daly rarely acted like this and was just trying to calm him down, as she preferred corpses over men. You make me sound perverted, Daly joked with a smile. She opened one of the small bottles and dropped a few drops onto the bright blue candle flame. Night vanilla, slumber flower, and chamomile, all distilled and extracted to form this aromatic floral essence. I call it Amantha, it means tranquility in the Hermes language. It smells really amazing. As they talked, the candle flame flickered, spreading the floral scent throughout the room. A beautiful aroma entered Klein's nostrils, and he instantly felt calm, as if looking into the silent night. This bottle is called the Eye of the Spirit. Barks and leaves of Drago and poplar trees are sun-dried for 7 days and boiled 3 times. Then, they are soaked in Lanti wine. Of course, there would be several incantations. As Daly described the liquid, the amber substance dripped onto the cobalt blue candle flame. Smelling the wine's ethereal scent, Klein saw the candle flame dance wildly. Daly's blue eyeshadow and blush seemed to glow strangely, and he started seeing double. It is a great helping hand for mediumship. It is also a floral essence that is sufficiently enchanting. As Daly continued to explain, Klein felt like her voice was coming from everywhere. Confused, Klein looked around and realized everything was swaying and blurry. He felt like he was surrounded by layers of fog, and even his body was swaying and disappearing before he started floating and losing his balance. Colors blended like an impressionist painting, more vivid than usual, creating a dreamy and hazy effect. He heard distinct murmurs as if many unseen people were talking. This feels similar to the luck enhancement ritual I did before, but without the kind of madness that makes your head feel like exploding. Klein thought, looking around questioningly. At that moment, he focused on a pair of crystal-clear emerald eyes. On a blurry sofa sat Daly in a black robe, looking strangely at the top of Klein's head. She smiled and gently said, "Let me properly introduce myself. I am the spirit medium, Daly. I can still have rational thoughts. It's like when I was at that luck enhancement ritual and that gathering." Klein thought, pretending to be confused and saying, "Hello there. The mental worlds of humans are extremely vast. Many secrets are hidden within the mind. Look at the ocean, what we know about it is all on the superficial level. But in reality, deep in the ocean, there is a larger unseen portion. Other than islands, there is the entire ocean. There is the boundless sky that symbolizes the spiritual world. You are the spirit of your body. Not only do you know of the islands above, but you also know of the things hidden beneath the sea, as well as the entire ocean. Anything that exists leaves some traces behind. The superficial memories of the islands may be wiped out, but what is left under the sea and the entire ocean will definitely have a corresponding projection left in it. Daly continued, enchanting Klein. The vague winds and shadows around him seemed to take on similar forms, as if Klein's spirit was fully exposed as an ocean, waiting for him to search and discover. Klein watched patiently, occasionally pretending to churn the ocean. Then, in a light voice, he replied, "No. I can't remember. I have forgotten." He showed just the right amount of distress. Daly tried to guide him again, but the clear-headed Klein was unaffected. "Okay. We shall end here. You may leave. Leave. Leave." The airy voice faded, and Daly disappeared. The wind and shadows calmed down as the ethereal smell and the wine's subtle scent became clearer again. The colors returned to normal, and the fuzzy feeling was gone. Klein's body trembled, and he regained his balance. He opened his eyes, not remembering closing them, and saw the bright blue candle still in front of him. Dunn Smith was still relaxed on the couch, and so was Daly in her black robe. "Why did you use the theory that belongs to that bunch of evil madmen, the psychology alchemists?" Dunn frowned and stared at Daly. As Daly put away the small bottles, she calmly replied, "I think it's pretty accurate. At least, it corresponds with some of the things I've made contact with before." Without waiting for Dunn's reply, Daly shrugged and said, "This tricky fellow did not leave a single trace behind." Hearing this, Klein sighed with relief. Pretending, he asked, "Oh, it's over. What happened?" "It felt like I just took a nap." "That was a pass, right?" "Thankfully, I had that luck enhancement ritual as a rehearsal." "Just take it as such," Dunn interrupted, looking at Daly. "Have you examined Welch's and Naya's bodies? The corpses can tell us a lot more than you can imagine. It's such a pity that Welch and Naya had indeed committed suicide. So, the force that drove them to it is to be feared. Not a single trace was left behind." Daly stood up and pointed at the candle. "I need some rest." The cobalt blue glow vanished, and the house was instantly filled with a blurry shade of red. "Congratulations. You can return home now. But do remember, do not reveal this incident to your loved ones. You have to promise this," Dunn said as he led Klein to the door. Surprised, Klein asked if they didn't need to check for curses or traces of evil spirits. Daly didn't mention anything about it, so there's no need for it, Dunn replied simply. Klein calmed down. Remembering his earlier worries, he quickly asked, "How can I be sure that I will be free from trouble from now on?" "No worries," Dunn said with a twitch of his lips. Based on statistics of similar incidents in the past, 80% of the survivors of the incident do not experience any horrifying after effects. Yeah. This is based on what I know, roughly, more or less. Then, there's still 1/5 of those poor souls. Klein was worried about his chances. Then you can consider joining us as a civilian staff. This way, even if there are any precursors, we can discover it in time, Dunn said casually as they approached the carriage. Or simply become a beyonder. After all, we are not nannies. We can't babysit you all day long and even watch what you do with women. Can I? Klein questioned. He didn't really expect to be able to join the Nighthawks and gain beyonder powers so easily. That was a big deal. Dunn paused and turned his head slightly to look at him. It's not that you can't. It depends. What? Klein was shocked by the change in his words. He stared blankly beside the carriage before asking, "Really? Who are you kidding? Is it so easy to become a beyonder?" Dunn laughed lightly, his gray eyes hidden in the carriage's shadow. "You don't believe me, huh? Actually, when you become a Nighthawk you lose a lot. For instance, freedom. Even if we don't talk about this now, there is another issue. Firstly, you are not a member of the clergy, nor a devotee. You can't pick whatever you want or choose the safest approach. And secondly," Dunn held onto the handle and hopped onto the carriage as he continued, "among the cases that we, us, the mandated Punisher, the machinery hive mind and other judiciaries, have to deal with annually, a quarter of them were a result of beyonders who lost control." A quarter? Beyonders who lost control. Klein was stunned. Just then, Dunn turned slightly, his gray eyes deep and serious, and added, "And among the quarter of cases, a large number of them are our teammates." Chapter 15, The Invitation. After hearing Dunn's words, Klein felt a rush of strong emotions. He instinctively asked, why? He wondered if being a beyonder was so dangerous that even the church's own investigators who dealt with strange events were at risk. Dunn got into the carriage and sat down, his expression and voice unchanged. He said that this was something Klein wouldn't understand unless he became one of them. Klein was momentarily speechless. Then, he sat down and asked, half doubtfully and half jokingly, how he could decide to join if he couldn't understand the dangers involved. It seemed like a no-win situation. Dunn took out his pipe again, held it to his nose, and sniffed it. He clarified that a civilian staff member was also considered one of them. Klein rephrased what Dunn had said to confirm his understanding. If he became a civilian staff member, he would learn about the secrets and dangers faced by beyonders, as well as the risks involved, and then decide if he wanted to become a beyonder later. Dunn smiled and agreed, but with a condition. Becoming a beyonder wasn't just a matter of wanting to, as every church had strict rules about it. Klein silently agreed that it would be strange if they weren't strict. He then asked if becoming a civilian staff member was also very strict. Dunn, with his eyes half closed and a slightly relaxed expression, sniffed his unlit pipe and said there shouldn't be any problems if it was Klein. Klein asked why, again, feeling doubtful. He jokingly thought that maybe his uniqueness as a transmigrator made him stand out. Dunn opened his eyes, which were as calm as before. He explained that first, Klein had survived a dangerous situation without their help, showing exceptional qualities like luck, which they often welcomed. Seeing Klein's blank expression, Dunn smiled slightly and said to consider it a joke. Second, Klein's history degree from Koei University was something they urgently needed. He mentioned that even Lumi, a believer of the Lord of the Storms who disliked women, had insightful views on society and believed talent was important. Dunn explained that they often encountered old documents and objects from the 4th epoch or earlier, which cults and heretics tried to use for power, sometimes causing terrible things. He said that most of them, except for beyonders in special fields, weren't good at academics or were past that age, pointing to his own head with a self-mocking smile. He added that studying boring historical knowledge made them sleepy, even the sleepless. They used to work with historians, but that risked exposing secrets. So, having a professional like Klein in their ranks was very appealing. Klein nodded, accepting Dunn's explanation. With his mind full of thoughts, he asked why they didn't just train someone themselves. Dunn replied that this led to the third and most important point. Klein had already experienced a similar dangerous situation, so inviting him didn't break their confidentiality rules. He explained that if they tried to recruit someone new and it failed, he would be responsible for the exposure. Most of their team and civilian staff came from within the church. After listening silently, Klein asked why they were so strict about secrecy. He wondered if making the information public and raising awareness wouldn't prevent similar mistakes. He believed that fear came from the unknown, and they could make the unknown known. Dunn shook his head, saying that humanity's stupidity was beyond imagination and that public knowledge could lead to more people copying dangerous acts, causing more chaos and severe incidents. Klein understood, quoting Emperor Rozel's famous saying that humans learn nothing from history and repeat the same tragedies. Dunn agreed that it was a very philosophical quote from Emperor Rozel. Emperor Rozel said that this Transmigrator Senior really didn't give the latecomers any chance to show off. Klein didn't know how to respond. Dunn turned to look out the carriage window at the dim yellow streetlights. He mentioned a similar idea within the judiciary of the major churches, which might be the main reason for the strict secrecy and keeping ordinary people in the dark. What is it? Klein asked, his interest piqued, feeling like he was uncovering secrets. Dunn turned his head, his facial muscles barely moving. Faith and fear bring troubles. More faith and more fear bring more troubles, until everything is destroyed. After saying this, Dunn sighed, adding that besides praying to gods, humans couldn't solve their real major problems. Klein repeated the phrase silently, not fully understanding it. What followed was a feeling of fear of the unknown, like the dark shadows cast by the streetlights outside, where it seemed like there were cold eyes and open mouths in the darkness. As the horse galloped and the carriage wheels turned, with Iron Cross Street in sight, Dunn suddenly and formally invited Klein to join them as a civilian staff member. Many thoughts rushed through Klein's mind, making him unsure. He considered the offer and asked if he could have some time to think about it, as it was a serious decision. Dunn nodded and told him to reply before Sunday, reminding him to keep everything secret and not tell anyone about Welch, including his siblings, as breaking this would cause trouble for them and could lead to a special court for Klein. Klein gravely agreed. The carriage fell silent again. Seeing that they were nearing Iron Cross Street and his home, Klein suddenly thought of a question. After hesitating, he asked Mr. Smith about the salary and benefits of civilian staff. Dunn was momentarily surprised but then smiled and said Klein didn't need to worry about it. He explained that their funds were guaranteed by the church and the police. New civilian staff started at £2.10 solely per week, with an extra 10 solely for risk and confidentiality, totaling £3, which was comparable to a university lecturer's salary. He added that the salary would increase with experience and contributions. Dunn continued that civilian staff contracts were usually for 5 years, after which they could quit normally but had to sign a lifetime confidentiality agreement and couldn't leave Tingen without permission. If they wanted to move to another city, they had to register with the local Nighthawks first. He also mentioned there were no weekends and they worked in shifts, with 3 civilian staff on duty at any time, and vacations had to be arranged with colleagues. Just as Dunn finished speaking, the carriage stopped in front of Klein's apartment building. I get it now, Klein said, turning to get out. He stopped and asked Mr. Smith where he could find him after making his decision. Dunn chuckled deeply and said to go to the Hound pub on Bisick Street and ask for the boss, right, saying he wanted to hire a small mercenary squad for a mission. Klein was confused. Dunn explained that their location was also secret, so he couldn't tell him directly before he agreed to join. He then smiled and wished Klein a good night's dream. Klein took off his hat and saluted, watching the carriage drive away. He took out his pocket watch, opened it, and saw it was just past 4 in the morning. A cool breeze filled the street, and the dim yellow streetlights lit the surroundings. Klein took a deep breath, taking in the silence of the night. The usually busy and noisy district was lifeless and quiet, a stark contrast to the silent observations and the medium's seance at Welch's. It was only then that Klein realized his linen shirt was soaked with cold, clammy sweat.